Magic, white and black, the science of finite and infinite life. There were true alchemists during the Middle Ages who knew how to extract that seed from the soul essence of the world, and there are some who have the power to perform that process today. It is an eternal truth that without our secret magical fire, nothing can be accomplished in our art. The ignorant will not believe in our art because they do not possess that fire. And without that fire, all their labor is useless. Without that fire, spirits cannot be bound, much less can they be acted upon with material fire. The most important alchemical work is the generation of man. It requires not only the chemical combination of physical substances, but involves a chemistry of the soul and an influence of the spirit. And all must harmoniously act together if a human being, and not a human monster and mental homunculus, is to be the result. If the rules of alchemy were better understood and adhered to, scrofula, cancers, syphilis, tuberculosis, and other inherited diseases would disappear, and a strong and healthy generation of men and women would be the result. The true alchemical laboratory is the body of man. The alembic is the soul, the magic fire the will, having become free. Ignorance is like lead, but by the addition of mercury, representing knowledge, it becomes transformed into the pure gold of wisdom. Nothing will ever be accomplished without a mortification of the earthly residua, and it is for that purpose necessary to practice a continual sublimation of thought by sending the aspirations of the soul up to the highest good, and to coagulate the wisdom received so that it may be incorporated into the soul and even the body become luminous in the light of the spirit. All this can be accomplished only in proportion as the will becomes free and ceases to be the slave of that compound of elementals and animals which constitutes the elusive ego of man. Not only should the will be free of all lower desires, but free likewise from the dominion of the imagination. The will is the sun, the imagination the moon. The moon must obey the sun, not the sun to the moon. Thought must become obedient to the will, and the will must be in harmony with wisdom, while wisdom is acquired in no other way but by obedience to the law. He who obeys the laws of nature and acts as her servant becomes the master of nature and renders her obedient to him. He who obeys the divine laws of God and is a true servant of God will be in possession of divine power, and God will fulfill his desires. The will becomes free to knowledge, not by means of what is usually called knowledge, and which consists in opinions formed by intellectual speculation and drawing inferences, but by means of the knowledge of the soul, such as is the result of the soul's own perception and experience. Only when the will has become free will it be able to act at a distance and to perform the wonders of magic and alchemy, which are regarded as miracles by the ignorant and denied by the foolish, because no man can be found who is able to perform them, they all being the slaves of worldly desires. The will of God is free and identical with the law. It is not influenced by any selfish desire nor by exhortations and prayers. It never deprives any creature, however low it may be in the scale of evolution, of any of its rights or gives them to another. It is deaf to persuasions, unaffected by bombast and bragging, and can neither be bribed with money nor be deluded with shows. If the actions of the universal mind were not subject to the eternal law of cause and effect, but guided by the arbitrary whims and notions of some invisible power, or God contained therein, the most extraordinary results were liable to follow, and the age of actual miracles would begin. The earth would perhaps stand still for a day or a year, and begin to revolve again the next. Sometimes it might turn fast and at other times slow, and there is no end to the absurdities which might take place, especially if this imaginary power could be induced to follow the advices of its worshippers. To the superficial observer, the processes of nature seem to be the results of chance. The sun shines and the rain falls upon the land of the pious, as well as upon that of the wicked. Storms and fires rage, careless whether they destroy the life and property of the learned or that of the ignorant, because they are the necessary results of the law of cause and effect. The interest of individuals cannot control the welfare of the whole. While the welfare of the human body seems to be, to a certain extent, under the control of the will of the individual, the processes of nature as a whole appear to be unguided by the reason of the universal mind. Man's reason can prevent an outburst of his emotions, but where is the personal God to control the emotions of the soul of the world? God does not prevent the growth of warts or cancers or tumours. God, being the law, cannot act in contradiction with himself. His blessings are accompanied by curses. Man's foot crushes the insect because man's perception and intelligence does not pervade his feet. God does not prevent the growth of a stone in the bladder because the high cannot manifest itself in the low. Wisdom cannot be active in an unconscious form. The means must be adapted to the end. The music that can be made with a harp cannot be made with a stick. The intelligence of the universal mind can only manifest itself through instruments adapted for intellectual manifestation. Wisdom is not a product of the organization of man. It is eternal and universal. It finds its expression in the fundamental laws upon which the universe with all its forms is constructed. It is expressed in the shape of a leaf, in the body of an animal, in the organism of man. Its action can be found everywhere in nature, as long as the beings in nature live according to nature. There are no diseases in nature which have not been originally created by powers which acted contrary to the laws of nature and became, therefore, unnatural. Outward appearances seem to contradict this assertion, because we find animals affected with diseases, and epidemic diseases are even of frequent occurrence in the vegetable kingdom. But a deeper investigation into the occult laws of nature may show that all the forms of nature, minerals, vegetables and animals, are merely states or expressions of the states of the universal mind. In other words, in products of the imagination of nature. And as the imagination of nature is acted on, influenced and modified by the imagination of man, a morbid imagination of man is followed by a morbid state of the universal mind, and morbid results follow again on the physical plane. This law explains why periods of great moral depravity, sensuality, superstition and materialism may be followed by plagues, epidemics, famine, wars, etc., and it would be worth the while to collect statistics to show that such has invariably been the case. The elementary forces of nature are blind and obey the law that controls them. If hailstones were wise, they would not indiscriminately destroy the crops. If the sun were a vehicle for intellectual labor, he might perhaps be persuaded sometimes to change the directions of his rays. Stones have no intelligence because they have no organization through which intelligence can act. But if an intelligent power sets them into motion, they obey the law by which their movement is guided. As the organisms rise in the scale of evolution and development, their consciousness becomes more manifest. Consciousness becomes manifest as instinct in the animal creation. It teaches the bird to fly, the fish to swim, the ants to build their houses, the swallows to make their nests. Acting through the nerve centers and the spinal cord, it induces the actions of the heart and lungs and other organic and involuntary actions of the body. The brain is the most highly developed instrument for the manifestation of mind. It performs the intellectual labor of the organism, acting as a center of attraction for the collection of ideas, as a workshop for their transformation, and as a focus from which they are reflected again into the astral light. But with the power of performing intellectual labor, the highest manifestation of God in man is not yet obtained. If we wish to know the wisdom and majesty of God, we must prepare ourselves to become fit receptacles for His love. To accomplish this, we need not seek to acquire anything by our own power. All selfish efforts are useless for that purpose. All we need is to throw away the obstacles in our possession that hinder us from seeing the light of the truth, and which consist of our own selfish thoughts and desires. If man accomplishes this Herculean task, then will the door to the mystery be open before him. His mind will become illuminated with wisdom, and in his own soul he will behold the glory of his Creator.